Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Towns. In the previous episode we were dealing with some biter issues. We had a couple of attacks that actually caused some destruction to some of our turrets, but we seem to be bringing the situation under control now thanks to the use of our tanks. So we're currently in Frackham. We had a wall taken out recently here, but we've managed to get the repairs done and also deal with the offending base. But there are a few more that we're going to have to clear up as well, or else they're going to cause us some damage too. We just had another attack there on the southeast corner. So we'll quickly go over to the main base first, we'll resupply, and then we'll go out and try and deal with some more of them. In the last episode, we got most of the bases in the southwest dealt with, and one in the west that was causing some particular issues, or in the east. I keep getting those mixed up, east and west. I keep calling both directions west, which is even worse. So yes, we're going to go deal with some of the bases in the east initially, because we've been sort of ignoring those so far. It's not so bad over there because of the terrain. The terrain is more pollution absorbent and there are more trees around to help with the situation, but there are quite a few bases that are in range and we'll have to deal with them. So there's one here, this is right by the water. I think I dealt with this one before maybe, or I saw it a long time ago and I didn't deal with it, but we're going to clear this one away, and this one nicely splits in half the biters in the east. And the more water that we find further out, the better it will be for dealing with the bases, because they'll have to come through certain bottlenecks that we can hopefully defend with a couple of military towns. We'll probably connect them up to the railway network and they'll each have different jobs. I'm thinking like one for ammo and then another for something else. We'll work it out as we actually start in it, and I think that will be the next town that we build. There's a nice looking area up in the northwest that I think I'm going to settle some sort of ammo town in or something like that. So we've dealt with a couple of biters. I think there was a biter attack going on there that we managed to deal with, or they'd stopped by the rails. Sometimes they'll stand really close to some stuff that I've actually built as they gather for an attack on something more important. They seem to be ignoring the rails mostly so far, which is fantastic, because if they were dealing with any rails that they encountered, then the system would be completely broken. We'd have some serious issues, and I think the only solution would be to put some walls along the entire network, which would not be fun. That would be even more stone usage, and we really don't have that much stone available right now. Though we did, last episode, start work on some little stone outpost depot things that we can start making use of in this episode. So we've dealt with another base up in the northeast. This one was actually closer than Ironwood, interestingly enough. A lot of the biters are just ignoring Ironwood at the moment. In fact, they're ignoring it entirely, which is great, because that is probably the most sort of open and least defended base that we have there, because there's so many trees that we can't actually fit any walls and guns in, and I don't want to remove any more than I need to. So I've just put some basic defences in around the furnaces, but they're still easy to bypass if the biters put their mind to it. But they're not. They're totally happy with that town being there, because it's not causing them any trouble. What is causing them trouble is me and my tank. We've dealt with another base now, and I think that is everything in the northeast. There are a couple in the southeast still, particularly that huge one that I really don't want to deal with. You can see it at the bottom there. It is pretty massive, and I could probably slowly turret creep my way through, but it would not be fun. There would be quite a significant chance of death, and I would rather see about getting a little bit further in terms of research before I tackled it. So there's another base over here. It's got a group of worms preparing for an attack. And that's the thing, the closer the bases are to the pollution, the more they're forming attacks. And there are quite a few cases in this episode, and I think the last one, where we were having to intercept a biter attack as it was going, because we were going to attack their base and then the attack set off while we were on our way. I think there's something of a trigger with that, because I've noticed something of a link previously where approaching a base seems to set off the biters launching an attack. Possibly that's done on purpose, because if I'm about to arrive, they want to send their attack force before I can get there. Then again, they should really want to send their attack force at me. Or it might be something to do with proximity, like increasing the rate that updates happen to the base's operations, speeding up when they attack or something. I really don't know how the programming or anything works with that, so there's not much I can say there. But we have dealt with another base in the east, and I'm pretty happy with the situation in the east now. We've got only sort of the giant base further in the south, and maybe a couple that are just on the edges of the pollution now. So next we're going to deal with the northwest. This is the last place that we've got biters well inside the pollution range. There are two bases in particular that are just ridiculously close relative to anything else, and they're right in the middle of pollution. Particularly this one right here. This is next to red points, and you can see it from red points as we arrive. An attack is launched, so I'll quickly run after that one because it's going for Colbury, where there was an explosion recently. Basically, that particular base, it seems, has been attacking so much in that point of Colbury that it has blown up one of the defending turrets, and then when I replaced it with two, they blew up both of those as well. So we've now got something like 5 in its place. So that should be fine, but we'll also deal with the base itself because clearly this is a more urgent one. And already another fully prepared attack force has turned up, and every time I do a pass with the tank on this one, another attack force is already being prepared, showing just how angry this particular base is. The closer you are to the pollution, the quicker you produce biters, and the quicker you launch attacks. So you want to deal with the closest ones first. The further away ones are a lot less of a problem, because if they're just on the fringes and they're just absorbing little bits of pollution that manage to make it a bit further than the rest, then it's going to take a long time for them to sort of gather any momentum for an attack. Anyway, we're trying a new tactic here. I'm using poison capsules. I think I've fired 2 of them there, which half killed them, so I fire another 2, and after a minute, all of the worms die, including the big ones, which is good. We might start using that as a tactic a little bit more, particularly on some bases where it's really tough to deal with because of how many worms there are. It can sometimes be a better idea to deal with the worms before the biters. Currently my tactic is always dealing with the biters just because the bases are really weak and you can take them out in like a second with the tank. Now running them over isn't too bad as well, but I'm sort of avoiding that so far because I don't like ramming because it can very quickly turn the battle against you as you slow down, and then the biters chasing you can catch up and then they can suddenly overwhelm you, and in attempting to run them all down you end up slowing to a halt and then they just pile on and you die. So I'm going to avoid that where possible. We might use that if necessary, but for the moment we're alright just sort of passing and taking out the bases. And we just take out the bases because they're easier. We leave the worms to last because we can sort of control it better. But if we can get in there and fire off a few poison capsules, it might be a better way of dealing with the bases, because a base of just spawners is a lot easier to deal with because you don't have to worry about constantly being under fire by the big worms. And if you go fast enough, you don't even have to worry about being hit by the biters themselves. I think they can, well, some of them can catch up to you, maybe the small ones, but you can generally stay out of harm's way if you keep going at full speed in the tank. So we'll have a bit more of a play around with the poison capsules and see how much they help. We might want to use them for the big base in the south. That might be a good place to make use of them to help deal with the situation. So I'm trying another different tack here. Instead of having the usual turret setup, I've got them further back so they don't aggro the biters, and I've just put them in a line. So what I'm doing is running in, poisoning all the worms, and then using the line of turrets to take out the biters. And instead of aggroing them constantly, I just have things a little bit further away and do a very short initial run to take out the worms. So that one's done, and that is the northwest sorted. There were only 3 bases total that were in range there, and the only bases that are in range now are in the south. We've got some in the south east that we just haven't dealt with yet, and it's pretty much just directly south. And then the southwest is, well, it was okay, but unfortunately the introduction of our new stone town seems to have set things off again. The pollution is spreading out from the town hamlet things and is reaching the bases. So there are quite a few bases that are in aggro range, well, not aggro range, in pollution range, and they might start launching attacks. So far they've stayed pretty quiet, so we may be alright because there's not that much pollution reaching them. They're all right on the edges of it, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, last episode I asked you what we should call these things because I'm really not sure. We had a couple of different suggestions, people saying hamlet, village, outpost. Someone said homestead. I quite like that one. There were a few others as well. I've forgotten them now, unfortunately. I should have made a list as I do with the town names. But I quite like homestead. I might go for village instead, though, just because it seems slightly too big to just be like one family sort of thing. Particularly this one here. This is a larger one. We've got 4 miners and 2 furnaces. And we're trying our best to get them all powered while sort of being efficient in our usage of different stuff. So we've got one one single substation in the middle, and we're trying to keep everything in range of that to be sort of to keep it nice and uncluttered, basically. And we'll also make sure to put some turrets around it and some walls once we actually have the stone coming from them, which is it's a good way that it works, really. The one thing it generates is stone, and we need that to finish it off, though it does mean that it is operating without defences for a while. And I think the other one in the south is still not fully walled, but there should now be a supply of stone built up that we can use once we arrive to finish that off, and then it should be fairly safe from biter attacks. They could always blow up the turrets as they have been in the towns, but they shouldn't be attacking too often just because they're fairly small and they're not really particularly big targets for the biters to take out. And also they produce very little pollution anyway, so it shouldn't be that bad. I mean, the miners are not so great. It is quite annoying. They produce something like 9 pollution, whereas a electric furnace produces 0.9. And I think the miners might be the most polluting item in the game, or something like that, most polluting building, which is unfortunate, but we have to deal with it, and it will cause us some problems in future when we're setting up new towns right out where the biters are, and then they start just pumping out pollution like crazy. And thankfully, the one place where we've done that so far, Ironwood, has not been operating, so we haven't had to deal with that problem. Once that actually starts providing towns, like being the sole provider of iron for certain towns, we're probably going to start seeing some trouble in Ironwood. There may even be biters like tearing through trees to get to the machines and stuff like that, because biters don't care about trees. Interestingly enough, you think that, well, I don't know, you sort of imagine it's sort of like the ecosystem is all working together, but it's really not. The biters hate everything, including you and everything else that was already here. Except the fish. They don't bother about the fish, but probably because they can't swim, so they don't care. And the fish don't seem to care about anything. They just happily swim right by you and get mined, I guess, and eaten. So we're over in the south village. I think I'll say village. I like homestead, but I think I'm going to go for village. Just because of the size. This one's more of a homestead, because there's only 2 miners and a smelter. I don't know, you could imagine that as like 2 mining families with a joint smeltery, or maybe there's a 3rd family that smelts. I don't know, I'm just coming up with random stuff here. So yes, this is the south village, and we've got a north village, and we'll just stick with those names until we have more of them, and we probably will, because there are more stone deposits around, and these ones are only going to last so long. But we now have finished the defences on the south one. We're going to go back up to the north one, because there should be a little bit more stone there now, and we can finish off the wall there as well. And we also took some stone back from the south one that we had left, and conveniently we had the exact right amount of stone to completely finish the wall, so whatever we have left in this particular town we can take home. We can start working on flooring things again and more walls and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll leave it for a while. We've got some chests that can fill up with stone bricks, so hopefully when we come back there will be enough to start flooring the sections of rail that we've missed, and making more concrete again. Though we do still have plenty of concrete, because there wasn't any stone coming in, I sort of stopped using concrete as well, and there is actually still quite a bit of it left, something like 20 stacks I think, maybe something around that, I'm not really sure. But yeah, we loaded the tank up with a ton of raw stone as well, because the miners are working quicker than the furnaces. I think it usually works out that 1 miner equals 1 furnace in terms of production, but it might be different with stone, because you use 2 stone to make 1 stone brick, so I have no idea, but basically there's excess stone being produced, so we can take that back and use that to make some rails. And I think now that the sort of the most urgent biter threats have been dealt with, we can start looking at making some more rail stuff again. We've been spending too much time running around dealing with the biters, but we have pushed them back a fair bit, and it is going to take them a while to recover from it. So we're not in any sort of situation where the biters are advancing quicker than we can push them back. It just means that occasionally we'll have to sort of stop what we're doing and deal with them before we move on. There is the possibility that we could change our situation with power, because originally the plan was to stick entirely with steam, but some of the people that were suggesting it are now changing their minds, because of course if we're running entirely on steam, the biter attacks are going to be particularly frequent, and there's not going to be enough time to work on the cool town stuff that we're doing. So I might either switch to solar, or, well, I don't think I'll switch to solar entirely. I think I will keep at the very least all of the steam engines I've got so far, but I might just do solar panels from now on, or I might do a mix from now on. Solar will probably start to get involved, but there is an alternative option. I could just start making efficiency modules and then use efficiency with steam engines, and that would work. And it will be a long time before we start using the full 6 columns of steam engines again if we start making everything use 20% of the power it did previously. And that way, of course, we would, well, if we did it with everything right now, though I don't know if we have the technology for it at the moment, we could start looking into doing the research. But if we switched everything to 20% production right now, then we'd be using something like 1.5 stacks of, well, not stacks, 1.5 columns of steam engines, and it would take a base 4 times the size to use the same amount of power. So the pollution would recede, the biters would stop being a problem. Stuff like that. So I might look into just doing efficiency modules rather than going solar again, because I've gone solar so many times in the past, but then I've also gone efficiency so many times in the past, so I don't really know. I've always liked using efficiency modules just because it makes things stupidly easy in certain terms, particularly in terms of biters. It makes you use barely any solar panels, which is always good. But we are now building a new branch of our rail network. This will lead to our new town. It will be a military town. It's going to be in the north west, and it should hopefully stop any biter attacks, well, any biters from colonizing from the northwest, because it should be in the way, and the biters should get distracted on their way to their colonization and attack the town instead. It might be that we set up like a wall spanning the gap between the 2 lakes or something like that, so that and then like connect it up to the town so that it sort of covers everything. And of course we could have conveyor belts of ammo running along either end, so that we can keep it constantly supplied by the town, which would be quite cool, having the lines that run along there, because so far I'm just sort of manually loading the turrets, which doesn't make... well, it's not the best way to do it really. If you can have automatic loading, it's a better idea, because then the system doesn't rely on you coming along and making sure it's all still fine, which is entirely possible. If we go on some big mission somewhere, like we've been doing in Railworld, we could end up coming back to find that everything's been blown up because all the turrets ran out of ammo or something like that. So we'll see about having some more belt-based supplying and stuff like that. It does work particularly well with this design, because there are a lot of self-contained wall networks where you can just run a belt along behind the wall and behind the turrets and feed them that way, and you can have a train delivering the ammo to every town, and it works out quite well. You could have like a dedicated train for delivering like stuff that every town needs, like coal and ammo and stuff like that, and that would be quite nice. We might do that. Though I do sort of wish that when I originally made the system, I'd gone for the 3-line system, because I'm starting to like realize that it would have been quite useful in certain situations. It would have made junctions more messy and things like that, and it would have made it more of a problem to set up certain parts of the rail network. But having a 3rd line in the middle is really helpful, in that you can have like a service train that delivers everywhere, and you can also have a personal train that takes you anywhere, because at the moment I'm just using the tank and the car to drive anywhere, which can be quite slow at times, though of course it is useful to have a tanky driving around. But we'll probably park that up in the main base at the end of this episode, or something like that, and not use it for a while now that we've dealt with the biters. Though it is a huge help when it comes to laying rails, because you can just blow up all of the train, well, not all the trains, all the trees with it, which is always nice. Speaking of rail laying and rail-based stuff, there was a recent Factorio Friday Facts which showed us the new rail planning system, or whatever you want to call it, the rail placing system, which completely overhauls how we do rails. There will no longer be a curved rail piece and a straight rail piece. There will just be rails, and then you can basically pick your starting point, pick your end point, and the system will just work out how that can be done. And you can, I believe, select either to just plough through everything or not. So you can... there was a very cool example of getting a rail going through the middle of some trees, and it could just plot through the angles it needed to approach, so it could get through all the trees and get to the other side and stuff like that. So very soon we may not be building rails in the conventional way anymore, though apparently there is still the ability to place straight rails normally, but then anything curved, you could just put the inputs and the outputs in the right place, and the curved rails will be put in. And it opens up the opportunity for new rail structures like S-curves that you can't currently make with the curved pieces we've got and things like that. But anyway, we'll have fun with that when it comes along in 0.13. We're now finishing up. We're just resupplying in the main base, and then we'll hop over to Frackham. There was an attack and something seemed to explode. I'm not quite sure what, but we'll have a look at it and make sure everything's fine. But for now, I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.